making his third appearance on the show. We met via Zoom about a year ago, and I invited him back anytime he wanted. He's Julian Schlossberg, who's a Broadway and movie producer, a radio personality, a podcaster. He owned a company that was the largest distributor of classic movies worldwide. He's worked with the who's who of show business on both coasts and knows almost everybody in the business. Today, he's here to talk about his latest book, which is called My First Book, Part Two, and it's a follow-up to Try Not to Hold It Against Me, which was his autobiography. So welcome, Julian. It's nice to have you back again.
Thank you, Stewart. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Some of the quirkiest people I've ever met are in show business, and sometimes their antics are a lot of fun to read about. I was really sorry when I finished your book. It was an enjoyable read for anybody who loves show business. Everyone thinks it's all about the glamour and the fame, and everyone wants to be part of it, whether they have talent or not. What about the business of show business? Is that glamorous?
Well, I think show business is like every other business in one way. You have to have a production line, you have to have a sales line, and you have to get it out to the public. The production line of the studios or the independent producers who make the product, the distributors, those who sell the product, and the exhibitors, in the case of movies, are the theaters you go to, now streamers that you can watch. So it's the same in any business, the three aspects of production, selling, and getting it to the public. However, in show business, it's much more glamorous, it's much more exciting. It can be really ruinacious because we all read about people who become famous and then become drug addicts or drunks or both. So it's a tough business. It's a very competitive business.
Can you give our audience an elevator pitch, explain exactly what you do and what's involved in creating a stage or film production?
I'd be happy to. What a real producer does is to find the project, find the play, the screenplay, the short story, what you want to make, and then work with the writer, then get the director, then cast with the director, and then be at rehearsals and get involved in the sets, the lighting, the design, the costumes. I don't know. Anyhow, that's what I do. I fall in love, or else I can't do it. I have to really care for it because I recognize it's going to be my full-time job for at least 6 months to a year.
I know you've been involved in over 60 productions, both on stage and screen. Sometimes there's a lot of egos involved. How do you juggle all the egos with their eccentricities and create a team that's willing to be flexible and work together?
It's not the easiest thing to do, and you hope that even though you own the ship, the captain you've hired is capable of doing it as well, and that's the director. You give an awful lot of power as a producer to the director with the hope that he can handle those egos along with you, that you're not alone in doing it.
You were on the radio for 9 years,
Yes.
and now you have a podcast. Where does it play?
It plays everywhere. I mean, I can't believe, I love when they say, and wherever you get your podcast, but we're on audio, we're on Spotify, we're on Pandora, we're on Amazon. I must say I'm enjoying it because, Stewart, I don't have to go to a studio. I don't have to take it. I just sit in my home like we're doing, and I do the interviews. And we've had wonderful people on. We've had everyone on from Richard Benjamin to Twiggy to Martin Sheen to Alan Alda. It's been a real joy for me to keep doing it.
Who was the most fascinating person you interviewed? Fascinating, not talent or anything, just fascinating and different, and
I was
just enjoyed their company.
I was absolutely knocked out by President George H.W. Bush. I absolutely met I mean, he would have been the greatest maitre d' in the history of restaurants. He was in Houston, Texas, and he had his office, he had duplicated the Oval Office so that you walked in there. I was looking for Martin Sheen from the West Wing, you know. There's the whole thing. But he was so warm, gracious, outgoing, kind. But there were so many. Betty Davis was really quite unbelievable. John Huston told some of the best stories I ever heard, and Mike Nichols was great. I mean, there were so many, as you say, 9 years. You kind of end up talking to a lot of people.
Well, you just mentioned Mike Nichols, and you can't mention Mike Nichols without Elaine May. And I
Yes,
see that she's written the forwards to both your books, and
yeah.
it's really nice to see that she still has a sense of humor. Is she
Oh God.
retired?
No, she'll never retire. She's only in her 90s. Why would she not retire? She's still being asked to write and perform. And a couple of years ago, I guess she was about 89, 90. She did 8 shows a week on Broadway, did the show called The Waverly Gallery, and won the Tony for Best Actress. So she's still performing, and she's been a wonderful friend for 50 years. And we've done a lot of work together. And we're still working together on a project now.
Reading in your book, and I came across a chapter that was headed Joe Franklin.
I
He
think
was
he
on
wrote
the air for 42 years, and I defy you to tell me what was his talent that kept him there.
I, I'll never know that. He was a very this was the strangest person I ever met as far as a guest. As when he was hosting, he rarely listened to you, and he would just go off on stories. But as a guest, when he was on my radio show, he was so spot on. He was so interesting. It was so different from the man who hosted a show. I could never get over that.
Let me ask you a final question. What's in the future for Julian Schlossberg?
Well, I'm really concentrating on doing these radio shows again as podcasts. I'm doing two. Another one is called Tales from Hollywoodland with two other producers, and we kind of talk about the old days and the movies. And as far as producing, I've got a whole. I'm kind of feeling like I'm in an airport. The planes are hovering. We can't land yet, but I'm waiting for that. I have 2 or 3 plays that I want to do.
Say thank you for coming on. Thank you for making me laugh. And you're welcome back anytime. Just pick up the phone and say, let's talk and just have a conversation.
Now, thanks again.